To the show. I am excited to have special guest Mark Zides on the show. Mark, welcome to the show.
Jeff, thanks for having me, bud.
Yes, you are so welcome. So we're going to get into your hidden edge. I love this topic. Why don't you share it with the audience, and then let's dive into it. How have you cultivated that in yourself? How do you do it in your business and everybody you touch? I'm excited to dive into your hidden edge.
Yeah, I believe it's a sense of urgency, Jeff. I believe it's making things happen, excuse me, for yourself and for others around you that you impact every day. And that's cascaded into, and hopefully we'll talk about a little bit later, my book called The Pace Process for Early Career Success. And the word pace actually, certainly has that same type of meaning that sense of urgency does. Keep the pace, push the pace, maintain the pace. You gotta make things happen every day. When you wake up in the morning.
Love it. So sense of urgency, I'm right in line with that. Energy is one of the values, the virtues that I say each and every person, if you want to live a fantastic life, a fulfilled life, you've got to bring that energy. So where did this sense of urgency kind of come from? Has it always been with you when you were growing up and doing things? Did it happen through experience? Dive into that a little bit, because I'd love to hear where it came from your perspective.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's nature versus nurture, right? So I think for me, I was born with it, but it was all family oriented, right? So,
Okay.
both my parents were blue collar. Father was a truck driver, mother was, worked at a hospital. So I think I got a lot of those traits and values from them growing up, as well as my two brothers. And, that created a lot of the grit, a lot of sort of that, self motivation. When you get up every morning, you got to make it happen. Things don't come easy. Don't be entitled, all that good stuff. So I think a lot of it was, the family values that I was brought up in. But then at the same time, as I sort of went through, school and college and then business, I kept a lot of those tendencies, a lot of those competencies in the workplace. And that's what I tried to, instill in everyone that I worked with or worked for from a leadership perspective.
Gotcha. So on a daily basis, are there any things you do to cultivate or remind yourself of that sense of urgency that are great, kind of low-hanging fruit that people can implement in their lives and start to build that sense of urgency?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, has to do with what you talk about a lot of times, Jeff, in your podcast, which I enjoy, listening to. It's, setting up that routine, right? Making sure that every day, you're setting the right, framework. You're coming to work or going to school or doing whatever it takes. Having that mindset, right? So whether that means you're working out in the morning, you're meditating, you're eating right, all those things that people may take for granted or call a cliche, I think are really important to have that structure, to be successful in whatever you do. So whatever works for you, you want to make that part of your daily routine. So I think it starts with routine. It starts with certainly meeting those goals, exceeding those goals. So I'm not one to kind of get into this whole, what's your 5-year plan, what's your 3-year plan. I think all that's really important. But I think when you wake up every day, a couple of clients of mine, have a funny saying, who's going to win the day today? You got to win the day, right? And it could be something small, like you helped out a client or you helped somebody, in a grocery store open the door. I mean, those are, again, small little things, but as long as you're adding value every day, which is what I say to not just, my kids, but also my clients, that's something that somebody should, take to heart is making an impact every day, whatever that may mean.
Yeah, I love the win the day. I have a saying, attack the day, right? Attack the day, be on your toes, be on the offense. And I think there's just this misconception that, hey, we're staying the same if you're just doing what you're used to doing. And I always argue, I say you're actually getting worse, right? The pace of life there's a lot of people out there that are doing amazing things, getting better. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. There's no staying the same. So that contributes as well to that hidden edge of sense of urgency. So win the day, some sayings in the morning, get you into that state. Love the foundational practices of getting some wins right when you wake up, right? Feeling that progress. That can just continue to build that sense of urgency, build that energy, build that momentum, and then you can take it to the rest of your day. What if you're just stuck and you're in this rut in life? And I know a lot of people can fall in that rut. How do they get out of that kind of Groundhog Day mentality where every day is the same, right? And how do they cultivate that sense of urgency in themselves?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with, where people are in life, right? Whether it's, personal challenge, professional challenge, but you have to reflect, right? You have to look back at where you are and where you want to be. And again, you look at people that, look at athletes, for example, right? If they have a bad game, are they going to hang their head? Are they going to try to fix the mistakes or whatever didn't work, and they're going to go to the next game or the next week and improve upon that? So I think as an individual, you just have to find the, intestinal fortitude, that resilience, whatever it takes to kind of turn that around, right? And look, it sounds easy to say turn the page or do something different, but whatever mind shift or mindset you have to do to actually, change sort of that morass that you're in, you just got to do it, right? Whether it means, take a break, go on a walk, take a vacation, come back, reset, go talk to somebody, whatever, advice or coaching or mentoring you need to do to get out of that rut, you just do it. You just got to strap it on, again, going back to the old school, cliches, and make it happen for yourself and everyone around you.
No, I love the idea of kind of reflecting, as well as athletes, right? I mean, I come from an athletic background. My sons are athletes, and I love coaching them now on, hey, what do you do to respond when something doesn't go right in the game? My youngest son's a quarterback. He threw a bad pass. I could see him getting emotional on the field, and we talked about it after, and I said, do you think getting emotional and getting down on yourself helps you complete that next pass? And he said, nope. I said, well, there's a great example of you just have to flush it and you have to move on, right? The greats, they snap back in an instant. They know that they're never going to be perfect. They know that, I think there was a story about Jack Nicklaus where he knew every round he would hit 6 or 7 bad shots. So he anticipated them, knowing that when I hit those, I got to move past them real quick, and the next shot's going to be a great one. So love that piece of it. So sense of urgency, pace process. Explain that to me a little bit, and the audience. Let's unpack that.
Yeah, so I wrote a book during the pandemic around helping and giving back to Gen Zs and young Gen Ys who are looking to get into the workforce. Okay. And I always use the word pace. It's that word that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? So some people are going hard, going too hard. Maybe they have to slow down the pace or kind of figure out the right pace. Most people, as we're talking about here, don't have the right pace. They don't keep the pace. They don't maintain the pace. They don't push the pace. And when you're doing, coaching like you do with your clients or like I did with my clients, that's a word I like to use. Where are you in sort of this, journey of kind of being the best that you can be? Mm-hmm. And when I wrote the book, I just wanted to weave in that word because I thought it was kind of a good word. And then I hashtagged it. And then all of a sudden, it took some social media meeting, but then it turned into an acronym in the book, right? So, PACE stands for prepare, apply, commit, and evaluate. And when you look at sort of whether it's your job role or your career path or where you are personally or professionally, those are 4 words that, you can kind of take into account whenever you want to see where you are, whether, like I said, it's in your career or in life.
Awesome. So let's unpack each one of those words. What does it mean to you? How do you apply it, and kind of go from there?
Yeah. So thanks, Jeff. So in the context of the book, prepare, right? You want to go get a job, you got to prepare for that job. Research the company, figure out what industry you want to be in, prepare for the interview, who you're speaking with. Did you do a mock interview? Do you have it all figured out, right? How's your social media profile? Do you have a professional picture, or do you have a bad, picture of yourself, right? Apply all the skills you've learned, whether it's college skills, life skills, and then apply to the job the best you can be. You have to actually be different than everyone else. You have to be, you have to stand out, right? How do you do that? Is your cover letter boring? Is your resume the same as everyone else's? Kind of what do you do there, right? Commit. When you get in, you got to commit to the job, like we talked about. You got to have that resilience. You want to build the right network. You want to jump right into the job 30, 60, 90 days, make a difference, make an impact, have your boss, your manager say, wow, I want to hire, 10 more of this person, right? Mm-hmm. And then evaluate is, again, every 6 months, because the Gen Zs are instant gratification, right? So they want a promotion as soon as they get in the job. And I'm being, kind of general there, but evaluate the role, evaluate the company, evaluate yourself, right? Whether it's 6 months, 12 months, 18 months into a role. Do you want to make a change? If you want to make a change, can you make it in the same company? Do you have to jump companies, or can you go to your boss and say, hey, I've been doing this sales thing, for 6 months or 12 months. Can I do something else? This job seems interesting. So that's kind of the whole process. And along the journey, it could mean different things to different people, but that's really what it all meant when I wrote the book.
Do you find of those four, a couple that many people or the majority of people miss in the whole process? I mean, I have a couple that kind of stand out when you went through it, where I was like, geez, I think those two would be ones that people miss. Are there common ones that you feel that people miss overall?
You go first. Which two would stand out for you?
Prepare is one. I feel like people just don't prepare for success. I mean, we were talking about morning routine and stacking wins and that foundation. People just think they're going to wake up and it's going to happen. No, you need to prepare at night, have everything out and ready so you have zero resistance in that process. And I would think people aren't preparing enough to be successful in applying for that job and committing in those pieces. So that was one. And the other was evaluate. And I think that's overall in life. We don't evaluate where we're at. We don't evaluate, hey, yesterday, did I play with a sense of urgency or did I coast yesterday? Right. And that evaluation process, if we can get more into that habit, 3, 6, 9, 12 months, you're going to get better, because it's so much better to course correct there slightly than 10 years go by. And then you look back and say, oh, what should I have changed? You don't have the ability, and it's so much harder to course correct there, where if you do it on a much shorter time frame, it's much easier to course correct.
Yeah, I like those both, Jeff. I mean, I'm with you on the prepare. I'm on the P, right? Because it's competitive to get a job, right? Or it's competitive to get into college. So what do you need to do to out prepare or outwork or out brand, yourselves? You need an executive presence. You need to build your profile, right? So these young professionals that are trying to get a job, what does their social profiles look like? I had a TEDx talk and I talked about these Gen Zs being entitled and, the trophy generation. And I got 3 kids myself, right? So,
Okay. Yep.
I'm certainly guilty as charged to a certain bit of that, protecting them, entitling them to a certain degree. And what happened as we raised these kids is we didn't give them the opportunity to fail, right? So when they don't have the opportunity to fail, they can't learn from, tension or constructive feedback when they get into the workforce, right? So they don't get some of those life skills that maybe you and I got, playing in the playground or things like that. And when you cascade that into the workforce, you actually have to have a better LinkedIn profile than the next person, or your social media can't scream all party photos and whatnot, or someone's not going to hire you, right? So that's all of the prepare. And then if you research, it's at your fingertips, right? You and I couldn't look on Google and say, well, who's Jeff and what's his background? And how can I drop some things to make that connection prior to the interview or even post interview, right? And these are all short little skills that you can learn, but through the book, but also have that tenacity to go after what you really want to go after. And if you outwork everyone ahead of time in that prep stage, you should be able to get to the next round, in my opinion.
No, I love the prepare. I love the outwork, right? Doing these little, I call them micro things, right? Micro things that you can do that are significant in that person maybe you're interviewing with, or that company you're looking to get hired by, because it shows your work ethic. It reflects on who you are as a person. And I jotted down just failure. Failure is such an interesting thing. I mean, I grew up, I hated to fail. I'm one of the most competitive people you ever meet, where I had a friend of mine who said, hey, if your mom was on the 5-yard line, you'd run her over to win this winning touchdown. And I said, that was one of the greatest things somebody ever said to me. And my mother said, would you? And I said, absolutely, Mom, you're going down and winning the game. But this concept of failure, and I had a discussion with my oldest son the other day, because the Phillies are in the championship series, and he quit baseball early on in life. And he disclosed to me that he didn't like it because he failed so much, right? Baseball is a game of failure. So it was an interesting discussion about how if we can just pivot failure into lessons, and that's where you get the greatest knowledge and things that you can learn from, it's amazingly refreshing versus, hey, I failed and I'm not good enough. No, it's just a lesson. If you keep getting up, you haven't failed. You're just getting up off the mat. So I love those two things that you had spoken about there.
Yeah, you mentioned baseball. We're a baseball family. My son played college baseball, and one of the
Okay.
things I like to say to him is, all the Hall of Famers fail 7 out of 10 times,
Right.
right? And they do the math. They say, wow, so that means 30% of the time, yeah, they bat 300. You're in the Hall of Fame. So, that's a lot of failure. To your point on the baseball sort of mentality, and that's what I think makes that such a mental game. That game to me and golf are the two most mental. I mean, every sport is mental, but those two are really challenging from a mental perspective. And you have to have the sort of the mental capacity, and every person's different, right? You'll run over your mom at the goal line, right? What I would say is, I'll take my mom into the end zone with me, right? So I'll say, hey, mom, I'm going to take you in because I'm competitive, but at the same time, I'll hug you. We'll make it all work. So I don't know if that's a good comparison, but everyone's wired differently, right? It depends on sort of kind of your upbringing and who you are, and that'll translate into the workforce, right? You've been a successful person, successful business person. Everyone's wired differently, and it's based on their experiences, right? And a lot of it, like we just chatted about, is based on what they've learned throughout sort of their journey, right? And a lot of it's failure. A lot of it's kind of, how do you react to that failure? Do you put your head down and say, I quit, or I'm not going to do it again? Or do you pick yourself up? Like, you mentioned Philly, hey, Rocky Balboa, get up off the mat and go win the next round, or go win the next fight. So, that's what I prescribe to. That's why I think we connected, when we first chatted, was kind of, I think we have that same mindset, that same mentality.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Rocky Balboa. I play in my morning routine when I get some exercise in. "Eye of the Tiger" is the song I go to by Rocky, because it gets you that mentality. Hey, I'm going to get up. No matter what happens today, I'm going to get up and I'm going to keep moving, and I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. If I get knocked down, I'm getting back up. And those are just minor things that we can put into our lives that help us be more successful, or when we get knocked down, get back up off that mat. That is truly special. So tell me a little bit about needing a plan, right? And obviously, if you're going out into the workforce, you need a plan. What are some steps you like to? I know you alluded to some already, but if somebody's just stuck and they're like, I've interviewed, I haven't gotten the job, I'm in a tough spot, what can they do? What are one or two things that they can do today to make a difference in that process?
Yeah, it's challenging out there, right? So what I coach young professionals on is, if you hit that roadblock or you have a hard time finding a job, you can always fall back to plan B, right? So you should have a plan A, you should have a plan B. In corporate America, you always have those goals, right? You have your, hey, if you do this year, you're going to get a bonus, but then you have your stretch goals, right? And what I say to someone is, if you don't find your passion right away, or if you don't find the job right away, follow your passion. And what I mean by that is, look, if you're young in your career, go travel, right? Go learn something else, dedicate your time, work for a nonprofit, do something that's actually going to fulfill you in a meaningful way if you can't find it in a professional way. Always continue to network. But what I will say is, if you can't find the perfect job, you have to find a job. You can't live in your parents' basement, your whole life. So whatever it takes to kind of bring some income in and make yourself feel that, you're moving forward every day, you absolutely have to do that. Whether it's dedicating your time to a worthy cause, or dedicating your time towards something you're really passionate about. And sometimes those two things will intersect, and all of a sudden another door opens and says, wow, I met somebody through some nonprofit or some, other purposeful thing I'm doing. And then they say, oh, I like this kid. I'm going to introduce you to somebody else. And then all of a sudden, boom, something else opens up. So what I always try to say is, be opportunistic. If one door closes, another one might open. So, and always network, always build your brand, have that elevator speech, right? Who are you? What's your purpose? What are you going to bring to the table? So if someone, comes to you, a mentor or someone that you meet, parents, friend, or someone at an event, hey, Jeff, what do you do? Or what do you want to do? You got to have that story. You got to have that. Here's what I'm looking to do. A biochemist, engineer from XYZ school. Here's what I'd love to do, blah, blah, blah. And they might say, oh, how come you haven't landed a job yet? You seem like a smart kid. Well, I tried these biotech companies. Nothing. Have you ever tried research? I know somebody that's looking for, someone that can do a ton of research at this hospital, whatever. So I've had a couple of things, young students go that direction, right?
Okay.
Might not pay as much as a big pharma or a biotech might pay, but it opens other doors, so there's a big world out there, and you just kind of have to find the right place, especially early in your career. I'm okay with, being in your early 20s, mid 20s, and still trying to figure stuff out.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think the key point I took there and I wrote down was connections, communicating, networking, right? Being a constant network. How can I help you? And building relationships. And I feel like that's such a lost art in today's totally connected, but totally disconnected world of tech, right? And social media, where we don't have enough conversations where it's, Mark, how can I help you? Jeff, how can I help you? Let's see if we can connect each other with other people in our networks. And when you start to do that, all of a sudden, to your point, things open up, and people inherently want to help other people, right? They want to they want to connect you with somebody else. So, if you're listening to this and you're kind of stuck in that rut, those networks, those connections, that process of reaching out to somebody, hey, how you doing? What are you reaching out? Those things matter, because to your point, outworking others, not many people do that. Not many people are following up and cultivating and building relationships in that matter. Do you think that's kind of along the same lines you were thinking?
Yeah, well said. I mean, again, if you go to college and you're fortunate enough to go to college, you have your alumni network, right? And your alumni inherently want to help other, graduates. So that said, you can probably network all day long with alumni from the school that you graduated from. And that, and then there's the 3 degrees of separation, right? LinkedIn's a great networking tool. So use that, and like you said, outwork everyone and sort of outmaneuver. And I've never met somebody who doesn't want to help someone else or sort of pay it forward. For me, I want to pay it forward, right? I've been fortunate through my career. I've had great mentors, and I want to pay that forward moving, as I kind of get into the next chapter of my career.
No, I love it. Great point to end on. Mark, where can people find out more or look you up?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So my website's always good, markzides.com. Any of the socials at Mark Zides or on LinkedIn. Easy to find me by searching on me. And yeah, I'm open to any networking opportunities, any mentorship, any speaking, any consulting gigs, all that good stuff. So, happy to network with anybody. And thanks for the platform to chat with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being on, Mark.
Thanks, Jeff. Good talking to you.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing, amazing rest of your day. Rise, fight, love, repeat. Get after it. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to your Hidden Edge podcast. You are now part of the movement, part of a tribe who's on a mission to uncover their hidden edge. We're stronger together, so please share this. Show up with one person in your network that you want to help. Together, we can empower others, and connected, we can make a dent in the universe.